in circles trying to find the south. But if you're looking for the truth, you got to find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof. Get it, hit the roof. And it all came to light with 200 proofs. Now I'm just really sick of people lying to me. So when I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
And welcome everybody to Globebusters. It is another fantastic Sunday. It is Halloween, which of course means there's some sort of terrible, frightening thing from the space community coming at us. Sorry, I know you're not seeing anything yet. We'll get that up here in a second. And welcome to the show. Bob's got something going on today, so unfortunately, you got me, and that means half the crowd just left the building. It's all right, though. We'll get over it. We will get through it. So welcome to the show. We're going to do some phone calls today. So the title of the show is, Are You Going to Call? And we're going to do about a half hour here on YouTube. Just say hello, talk about what's going on in the world of outer space. Such a magnificent place. And we'll talk about that. And then we will move over to Rockfin and take your guys' calls for the rest of the 3 hours. And then we will release you to the ghouls and demons, and you can go do trick-or-treating and all that fun stuff. All right. We've got John TheMorgile here with me. John, what up? Johnny boy.
Ooh. Hello. What up? Good to be here. Thank you. And hope we have a great show. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yes, what a great holiday. And we've also got the man himself, Wits It, Gets It. Austin, are you there?
What's going on, brother?
How are you?
Pretty good, can't complain. Living the dream, just chilling in Spartanburg, actually.
Where are you?
Back in Spartanburg.
Oh, okay. Are you staying put now, or are you back on? Are you going to get going on another 8-month journey?
Definitely not another 8-month journey, but no, went up to chill with Kai's dad in North Carolina, then came back here. Then we're going to Knoxville for a night to see my sis, goes to school there, and then we're going to go down to Florida. So we'll probably do some activism down in Florida for a little bit. And probably gonna look for a house and kind of chill for a little bit. It's been a long journey.
Very nice, very exciting. Yeah, I can't imagine you've been everywhere.
Right down the road from you, man. Oh, sorry, I'm in Greenville, so right down the road.
Oh wow, nice.
Just looking at this here, it's nice that the looks like the astronauts got to take up some some Halloween costumes, because it's real important. Doing so much good science up there. Amazing science, just constant. We don't know where Iru is. He was supposed to be here, but he is missing in action.
8 tons.
Huh? Sorry?
I think they have about 8 tons of science, don't they?
God, they have enough to choke a chicken
that what he
for
said?
sure. Oh, yeah. Just a ton of... That video I did is funny, where he says it 10 times or whatever it was, 15 times.
10 times in a minute and a half. But he literally said, we've got about 8 tons of science on the ISS or the Soyuz one. I'm like,
and it's always the same, because they always ask him, they always say, what science are you doing? And they never get an answer. Oh, we're putting together some of the best science experiments you guys have ever seen. We're life-changing science. We're looking at medical data. We're actually developing cancer cells, and we're seeing how they work in zero gravity. It's like, do these guys not realize they've been up there 20 years? Where are the results?
I mean, we are.
Where are the results?
Sciencing their ass off, basically.
Oh man, it's just you would think with some sort of expenditure like this that we would just have a plethora of things that we could call up, and you can't do it. I mean, you can't get anything out of them other than they've got this. I don't know if it's a website or something like NASA spinoffs, but they claim everything that ever was created came from NASA. It's just ridiculous. Like, as if we didn't have NASA, we wouldn't have microwaves. We wouldn't have Velcro. We wouldn't have cordless drills. They actually say that the cordless drill is because of NASA, simply because they say, oh, well, they needed a cordless drill for the moon, and they told Black & Decker, and Black & Decker made one and then said, oh, we'll also make one for people. and that's their story. So we have NASA to thank for cordless drills, because we would be in 2021 for sure. And without the space industry, we wouldn't have cordless. Nobody would be like, it'd be great if this drill didn't have a cord. No, we'd be too dumb for that. Thanks to NASA for taking care of that for us.
Hey, I gotta be this guy real fast.
Patents.
Sorry, yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you
totally
the stuff.
Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, brother.
It sounds like a delay or something. One of you go. Austin first. Austin.
Yeah.
Go.
Well.
Okay. I got it. Okay. But this is somewhat not related, and by somewhat I mean in no way related to what you guys are talking about. But I have to say though, because of the Halloween thing, have you guys heard that it actually comes from this Druid celebration where they would go door to door, and they would pick out children for child sacrifices, and then the children that they took from the houses, those houses, they would carve a pumpkin and leave it in front of the house.
Yeah, and wasn't there something to do with the saying "trick or treat" too, right? Like that they.
I'm sure.
I'm thinking of something else. Maybe. What year are you talking about? Approximately. When did they say this?
I don't know. Hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago.
I've heard something. I mean, obviously, and it used to be on the night before, right? Wasn't it? Didn't it used to be like All Souls Eve? Or am I thinking about something different?
Yeah, something like that. So, no, it's like from a satanic perspective, it's like a week-long ordeal leading up, and then I think the day before, that's when all the souls come back, or something like that.
Right. So, or All Hallows Eve, I think is what it's called, which is the day before what they called Hallows Day. But I thought it was. Like,
I hate to be that guy, right? I don't want to be like the Debbie Downer kind of guy. But like, dude, like we have children dressing up, and then they're going from door to door, and it literally comes from a ritual where they would go door to door to take children to sacrifice them. I just had to throw that out there. I mean, being a truther's not always fun, you know, but it is what it is.
If you ever
look at Easter,
go ahead.
Easter's another where they would have a woman impregnated on the vernal equinox, and then whatever 9 months later they would sacrifice the child, and then they would dye eggs in the blood of the sacrificed child, and that's where you get dyeing of the Easter eggs. So it'd be 9 months prior to Easter is when they would do the conception, all very ceremoniously. And so yeah. So, I mean, it seems like as if there's pagan origins to all of the so-called Christian holiday rituals, right, or, traditions that we have.
They just renamed them or whatever. Yeah, it seems like, from what I can remember, it was a Catholic thing. And it was, it had to do with the celebration. And I think they did sacrifices. I mean, thought it was a known thing. The Celts and stuff back then. So, I mean, you might be right, Austin. So you're saying that they would go around and randomly select children from different homes, and then if they selected your child, then they would put a pumpkin outside the door? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the idea was that, like if you gave up your child to be sacrificed, the idea was that they'd put a carved pumpkin in front of your house to protect you from the evil spirits that would haunt you for giving up your children.
Wow. Way to drive the show right into the ground. No.
Pretty intense, bro.
The good thing is we're going to be taking your calls. So maybe people out there, they have the real story of Halloween and they want to call in. We'll be doing that in 15 minutes or so. And maybe you have questions for us. Maybe you just want to give us the rundown for Halloween, where it came from. And also I wanted to ask you, Austin, what did you think of Flattoberfest?
It was awesome, man. It was awesome. Second time, but it never gets old, bro, because I always say this, but you can see that it breaks the system, like flat Earth took over the town of Spartanburg because it was downtown. So all the restaurants downtown, there's a whole strip, flat Earth everywhere, flat Earth lanyards everywhere, flat Earth memorabilia and shirts, and NASA's fake everywhere. Then we took over the Marriott every night afterwards for a little after party. And you go out there and you watch everyone in the Marriott and you're like, no one's staring at their phone. No one's staring at a TV. People are having drinks. No one's fist fighting. Everyone's just like laughing, talking about like very substantive conversations. If they pull their phone out, it's just to exchange information. And just with like that 200 people at the after party, that 600-700 people at the show, you can see that literally that is why they have to censor this, because it breaks the system. So my idea that they may eventually absorb flat Earth, I don't really know. When you hang out with a bunch of them, it doesn't really look like they can afford to do that. So it's always refreshing
like
to see like how powerful we are, together, like all unplugged from their nonsense and on the pursuit of truth. It's super powerful thing. So that alone is cool. And yeah, it was awesome, man. Bob had an awesome speech on electrostatics, and overall it was a cool experience per usual.
Yeah, I heard that Marty Leeds had a great speech. No, it's Marty Leeds. Sorry. Who am I thinking of? Who had a great speech? I watched part of it. Now I can't even think of who it was. Was Marty Leeds there?
Yeah, Marty Leeds did have a great speech.
Sorry, it was Marty Leeds. That's what I'm talking about. Yep, so I heard his was good.
Speech was really good.
Who else was good or memorable?
I'm not gonna say that any of them were bad. So
watch them all.
Was good.
Okay, what did Jason talk on?
Basically, it's like psychologically brainwashing the masses, like the psychology behind it, effectively, like how they implemented it.
It's a good topic. Because that's the most surprising thing through all this, and I think it's still woken people up. We won't talk much. I mean, we can't talk about that here, but that's the most surprising thing to me is that so many people are just, I guess, in love with the servitude, or it's like I think people need to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what you can do, what you can't do. It's kind of by design, right? I mean, the school system I think set that up, but it seems like was their goal, and once they got to a certain point, they knew they could pull anything off. So. Including,
it seems like that's the whole behind it is the psychological effects that it has. The entire paradigm, really, if you think about it, is built upon this idea of evolution and the world being sort of mediocre in a mediocre solar system, just one of billions in the galaxy, which is just one of billions in the whole grand scheme of things. So it really just belittles humanity. By direct extension, it belittles the world, which that's exactly the opposite of the truth. It appears it appears that the world is extremely important, and that human life and intelligence is extremely important. But of course, the scientific sort of modern paradigm is that we are all very much, expendable, and do you think they've got people snowed, man?
Do you think that the ball Earth was an original deception plan, or do you think that they originally thought it was a ball, came out and said it was a ball, were so sure of themselves, and then when they found out later that it was not, they knew they could never go back?
It's a good
I think it was intentionally a deception, bro. That's why, whenever it really got pushed out to everyone, I think it was. So what are we talking? Are we talking like the first globe ever made in the 1400s?
No,
are we talking the supposed story?
Because I think if they assumed that the Earth was, let's just pretend in their world that they assumed that the Earth was a sphere for a very long time, and that they just thought that, and then as they started doing observations, it's just like everything else, right? If you are biased in your observations, think of the Aristophanes kind of idea, where you already have this preconceived notion, and so you go out there and you measure the angles. Yep, it's exactly what we thought, and you don't look at the other alternatives, right? Same thing if you look at Hubble and what they did with the expanding universe, and we are the center. It certainly appears that way, and you can't disprove it with observations, but we're going to choose to go this other direction. So it seems like to me, like they kept trying to force their worldview, and their worldview works better with a sphere Earth that's accidentally here and that gravity works. And I just think that if at any point they realized that they were wrong, because I do think that they kind of were trying to steal it back from the church. Now, whether they're all working together or not, we do know that the church kind of led the world for quite a ways, and it wasn't until the so-called scientific revolution that it seems that science kind of took over. Religion takes a back seat. Religion actually cucks real hard to science and says, oh yeah, we're on a ball. Oh yeah, gives up basically the idea of the Bible altogether. Not Christians so much as Catholics, but I am talking about that, Jesuit Catholic, overbearing group that's there. So it just seems to me that it would be very, at that point, you could never go back on that. Again, I don't doubt that people went out to the ocean, watched boats go away, with their eyes, saw them disappear, and said, oh, we live on a sphere, right? We know that they didn't fall off the Earth, and they come back. And when we ask them, hey, where'd you guys go? They're like, oh, we just went out there. Like, oh, you actually disappeared from our eyesight. Now, when they got telescopes, they would have been able to zoom in a little bit more, but they probably would have seen the same thing and just kept thinking, I'm just guessing, maybe they thought it was a ball. Now, whenever they found out they were wrong.
That sounds ridiculous, right? Like if someone walks away from you, you can't see them eventually, bro. Like it's like they would.
Yeah, but
know
that line,
right?
that
like,
line,
to be like, we must live on a ball. You know, it seems so wild. That,
it does seem wild. But
know.
what I'm saying is, if they were told that, and then they went out, because this is what happens now. People are told they live on a ball, and then they're given these little tidbits of information, and they go out and they just uncover those. They didn't uncover shit. They just basically are being given. It's like I call it cookie crumbs for Christmas, right? It's like you leave the crumbs of cookies so that the kids go, oh, Santa was here, right? It's kind of the same thing that they leave these little things out there. They tell people, oh, go measure where the sun sets at. I bet it sets at 270 degrees west on the equinox, and then they do it, and they're like, yep, it did. It's a proven sphere, right? So it's not that's not a proof of the sphere. It's just a little kind of thing that they want you to find. So does it seem ridiculous? I don't know. I don't think that people thought back. Because another thing, I don't think we realize the horizon line that's out there at the water, and I know we're not showing anything on the screen, so I'll find something to show, but the horizon line that we see out on the water is so close. And now I realize, I kind of always realized, but when we looked at the pictures of boats, the boats that they call a Fata Morgana when the boats are just really on the water? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that alone tells us what happens, that boats that travel out there get lost in the atmosphere, because we know that you can't stack atmosphere on top of atmosphere forever. You're going to eventually not be able to see. But I think that people who saw boats going away from them and saw them disappear into this, what looked like nothing, and I could see them saying, oh, that must mean that the Earth's a sphere. So that's why science always goes back to that one, boats over the edge, boats over the edge. Now, I think today, our optics way outdo what they originally planned. In fact, I think the 7.6R was brought into play when we first got viewing apparatuses, right? So they originally basically based the Earth curvature on our eyesight. Okay, they have a certain distance. Well, as soon as we could see further than that, they had to add something because shit, now we're in trouble. So they went with 7.6R. Well, now we've even surpassed 7.6R with our technology. Now, the sad thing is, I don't think you can really get much further. Because if we can't use infrared, we can use infrared. Jay Tolan is 1,000 miles or something. He says, but that's up in a plane, right? You're never going to get that kind of distance from the ground because you're in the heaviest part of the atmosphere. So I really think seeing peaks at 200 miles away, 250 miles is probably the limit. What do you think? Do you think we could? We're going to ever see further?
To balloons, and the ability to capture that with video and send that back. That's a big one that they have no response to, except for, of course, then the advent of GoPro sort of fisheye cameras, which is what they've used sort of historically. Oh, there's the curvature. You can see it with the GoPro.
Right.
But then, sort of to the original question, the fact that they have in the curriculum basically teaching how stupid people were when they thought the Earth was flat and thought that they would just sail off the edge if they went too far. Look how silly these people were. And then Columbus, proved that it was a sphere by circumnavigation.
So doesn't that all seem like very fabricated? Yeah, so it seems very fabricated, right? But wouldn't that be the case if you had told people for years that the Earth was a sphere and then you realized you were wrong? What I'm saying is there's no way science could ever reveal that they were wrong about that. It would actually end science. That would be the end of science.
I see.
Right.
Well, okay, so this is what I think. I think that it originally was an ontological premise, right? Just fancy word, philosophical. And the little special boy pedophile psychopaths in Greece were like, oh, the perfect shape is a sphere. And it was this real metaphysical woo-woo thing. And they were like, I'm enlightened. They were doing a bunch of drugs, because, you take DMT, you're automatically a genius. And then they're like, okay, we figured out the secrets of the world. And they kept it for themselves. And then I think at one point they realized, okay, this is just patently absurd. And they kind of flipped it where the secret they kept in for the little secret boys club was that it's actually flat, right? I do think that they thought it was a ball at one point, not because of any observation or physical evidence, literally just like an ontological, I'm a special boy.
Yeah, but because you could come up with some, right? Like if you say, oh, if you're at this height and you can see this far on the water, but if you go up to this height and you can see further, it must be a ball. Like if you tell people that, then they go do that. And there's everybody you talk to, I'm sure you get this all the time, Austin. People actually think because you can get higher and see further that only can happen on a ball. And if you tell them that would happen on a flat earth, they'll fight you. You're like, what are you talking about?
But they're just so brainwashed. It's like
so
it's just
brainwashed.
like when they tell me like how the sun goes away, it must be going behind the curve, and I'm like, no.
Right.
And I'm always on the street, so I'm saying, look right there. You see the street lights? They're going down the street, and it looks like they're getting lower. But you agree that they're all at the same elevation, right? So it just looks like that. And their response, 90% of the time, as incredibly dumb as it is, well, that street's not flat. I'm like, dude, you're such an idiot, bro. Like, even when it's a hill going up. So, like, yeah, I guess when you tell people the information, right, they'll try to bend the observations into their preconceived worldview.
Sure, well, that's everything.
But like, the question is the people that told them, right? Did they know?
Right.
Did they know it was a deception? I think they found out pretty quickly, and like you said, they could never say that they were wrong. I think there's probably some truth to that.
Because I think the one line of
they kept the secrets for themselves.
Yeah, the one line of argument that never has made sense to me is when you say, why the line? They say, oh, it's they wanted to trap you here. And I'm like, well, they could have trapped you here with a flat earth as well. So it can't just be that. Because you could just trap people here with a flat earth and say, oh, there's a dome and you can't go anywhere. Well, people are still not going to be able to go there because it's cold, and they could trap people that way too. Now, the sphere to me seems like it matches their worldview. So that's why I think that if they wanted, because they don't like God, they don't like the Bible, they don't like,
right.
So they want to be the best, the most important, the most generous, the most amazing, intelligent things that have ever walked here. Go ahead. What somebody said?
Externalization of the hierarchy. Right. Externalization of the hierarchy, where they wanted to implement this sort of satanic paradigm across the board to everybody.
Right.
And what better way to do that than to completely debunk all of the claims made?
Right.
Like,
that's what science is. Science is simply the opposite of the Bible. It's every Bible account, just the opposite of that. If they say the Earth's 6,000 years old, they're not 4.5 billion. Okay, well, like no matter what, the sun came, light came when the sun did, and then they're like, no, the Bible says that the light was here first. So they said, no, the sun came first. So whatever it is that the Bible says, they just flip it opposite. Right? So
exactly.
It's pretty crazy. It's ironic.
Yeah.
It's ironic because the Bible's actually very scientifically viable, ironically enough. I mean, some of it maybe.
Because, it's observationally sound. To me, it's like the people who wrote the Bible were looking around and saying, let's write down what we see. And these guys came along and said, no, everything that you see is wrong. Your sensors are wrong, and we'll change it all. What do you think? You think you're still? You think it's on foundations? No, we're spinning. Right? So it's like whatever they could do to, I don't know, uproot the ideas of theism, they did. And the reason for that is because somebody once said it, and I thought it was so well said. They said that Neil deGrasse Tyson tells you you're insignificant because that makes him significant, right? So if he was if we all were just God's creation, then there's not anybody who gets to really stand up and be like, I'm significant, I'm important. But when there's no God's creation, the guy who tells you there's no God's creation, the guy who tells you he knows what happened 1/millionth of a billionth of a trillionth of a second after the Big Bang, all of a sudden he has importance. He gets elevated because of that. So that's why these guys love it, because it makes them feel like they live in the time period of Earth that has had the smartest human beings that have ever lived. That we are the smartest right now that we've ever been, and it's because of science. And I think you can get useful idiots to proclaim that stuff all day long. I think you can get people who are so in love with this idea that they just walk around and tout it. And then you've got all these, I don't know what percentage I would put on it. I try and say 90%. It's probably not true. I mean, what percentage of atheists do you think are former religious people? I think it's a high percent.
No, probably a very high. Yeah, super high percentage, because that's why they turned so vehemently away from it. But I have the theory there is no such thing as an atheist. But I think the people that claim to be atheists are predominantly from like overly religious, like brainwashed, childhood experiences. Like they were forced into this like cult-like system of religion, and they found out how ridiculous it is, and so they just turned 180.
And I totally know that because that's what happened to me. Right. So the second that my wife and I became disillusioned with religion, we, as fast as you can imagine, became atheists. As fast as you can imagine, believed in evolution, believed in every bit of it. It believed in space, believed in all of it, because you were led down the road of this religion, then you find out these guys don't really know, and there's a lot of lies going on here, and there's a little confusion, and then you see somebody with their arms open like, we have all the facts. We just go off evidence. So you run over there, and again, for me, I wanted to be somebody who was able to at least talk to Christians or debate them. So I said, I need to learn all these precepts. I can't just come over here and be like, yeah, science rules, and never do any actual work. So when I did that, I realized that everybody that believes in atheism doesn't do any work, that they repeat what they are told. If you ask them, well, oh no, I think the Earth's young, they'll just laugh at you and say, we know because of carbon dating. And you're like, no, it's not carbon dating. Oh, whatever, dude, it's radiocarbon dating, radiometric dating. And you try and explore that with them, and you realize they don't have a clue what they're talking about. They're just saying the words that have been given to them by the education system, which is we can radioactive date. They don't even realize that means that the conditions of the Earth have always been the same. And that's not even their storyline. Their storyline is there's volcanoes and eruptions and all kinds of bullshit going on. But then we can measure a rock today and based on its decay rate, figure out how old it is. That's dumb. That's dumb.
Oh, dude, they don't even. What's so funny? Most of their dating protocols, if you read up on it, they admit they can't even fully isolate the element that they're looking at the degradation rate of. So
we've been lied to on such a.
So how are you going to tell me how much it's been degraded? You can't even get it by itself to look at it, bro. It's so stupid if you think about it.
The whole litany of things is ridiculous. I mean, if you really start digging into a lot of these things are models that they've come up with that are useful, but they teach them as if they are fact. Right? I mean, there's people I think that believe that there's orbiting electrons and things inside of atoms. But you don't know that. That's a model. That you can't even see an atom. Imagine the people that cannot see an atom, because an atom is the smallest thing that could ever be, because you can't dissect it. So if you could see it, you'd be able to cut it in half. So you can't see an atom, and they tell you what's inside the atom. They tell you that there's orbiting electrons and neutrons, and they're going around a nucleus. What? Sorry. Somebody
I just said subatomic particles. So the atoms are the building blocks of matter, and yet we still have subatomic particles, which are the building blocks of matter, right?
And they say that gravity doesn't operate on
neutrons,
things.
Electrons.
Yeah, and they say gravity doesn't operate on things that small, right? So how do you have this whole gravitational world where everything comes together and everything coalesces and becomes planetary, and none of it makes any sense to me. In fact, the more you look into it, the more. So I did a clip last night. I'm wondering your guys' opinion and see if this makes sense. So did you guys watch the speed of light debunked video?
No, I'm start to looking.
Hebrew!
I didn't finish. Hello, everyone!
We almost fired you. I said at 12:36 we were going to fire you. You made it by minute.
No, because you changed, the Earth starts spinning more fast around the sun, and
Yes.
now it's 1 hour before, so I started, getting crazy with the time schedule. So sorry for my delay, but I'm here.
Very nice. Thank you. So
We'll allow it.
I'll play it a little bit, and you guys tell me if my line here, because I thought about it last night, and I was reading some of the comments, and I still think the comments prove my point. Let me bring it up here. Oops, we'll go over here. And you guys, I would love to know your guys' opinion on it, because, oops, what am I doing here? Don't go to Jeranism.com. Come on. Get there in a second. Because I think it debunks clearly the speed of light. So where's my YouTube channel? Hello. There we go. Now we got it. All right. What is going on here? There we go. That's better. So let's go to the most recent one. There we go. How long is it? I don't know how long it is. Hopefully it's not too long. I think it's like 10 minutes. But I can fast forward through it.
Watch these comments. Watch the people saying,
look at
I'm an idiot.
Huh?
Look at the origins
Yeah,
of
so
the speed and where they came up with the original metric for the speed of light.
I remember.
it is.
It's ridiculous. They actually tell you that like guys with candles bounced it off mirrors 7 miles away. Anybody who's ever done I did an experiment with a laser 4 miles away, and you could not, a candle 7 miles is a joke, and you bounced it back and forth. Anyway, I think the speed of light is...
The important thing in 7 miles is that if they take into account the curvature of the Earth.
Right? Well, of course. I mean, everything bends to the curvature of the Earth.
Of course they don't.
Yeah, you tell me if we think that this is a debunking, and I'll tell you what the guys in the comments were saying why it's not, and then I still think it's subdemonic.
Because they believe that a man on the sun and a man on the earth could be pulling the rod or stick for 8 minutes until the other one knew that they pulled it, yet in 8 minutes, they might have pulled a half-mile worth of rock.
So just as a quick premise here, I was saying that if we had like a metal rod, again, this is a thought experiment. I said, if you get mad at that, well, guess what? There's no cannon that can shoot a cannonball around the sphere Earth either, but you want to use that one for Newton's thought experiment that explains the whole world. So let's use it here. We're just saying, theoretically, we've got a iron pole, straight as could be, and you've got somebody standing on the Earth and you've got somebody standing on the sun. My question was, if this person starts to pull it, does the other guy feel it immediately? Now, from what I researched, they say no, that it would take 8 minutes if I started pulling for this guy to know that I started pulling. So then, okay, what if they both start pulling? How does that happen for 8 minutes? Where's the magical extra? Now, the guys in the chat said, no, you have it all wrong, that this is not light travel. This is, if somebody pulls it, this person would immediately feel it. And I said, okay, so if that's true, then do you understand why light could be the same? Why don't people understand that if light just is, like the sunlight is just coming through the ether and it excites a certain part of the ether and lights up, right? And that's why when the sun rises above the limb of the Earth, we don't have people that like, oh, we got to wait 8 minutes for the sunrise. You see it immediately. Well, why? It's the same thing as if somebody had a stick to the sun and you were pulling it back and forth. That translates immediately. There is no travel time. There is no, I pull here and then we have to wait till that information travels. Now, the weird thing about that is if he pulls and this guy immediately feels that, why is that not faster than light travel? It's how can you have the effect of something take place 93 million miles away instantaneously? Then isn't that action at a distance? Isn't that the same thing as they had a problem with gravity? They said they had such a problem with gravity because they said they didn't believe in action at a distance. But what is different about that? If gravity's pulling on all of space-time, then it wouldn't matter that it has to take place far away. Because as soon as something happens, wouldn't it all translate through all of space-time just like this would translate through that pull? Did I confuse you?
No, in a sense,
I think that there would be no delay, in my opinion. I mean, of course, I've never had a stick quite so long, but I would expect there to be no delay. It should be instantaneous.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's faster than the speed of light, but it's just, it's a physical object that it isn't necessarily traveling that distance at all. It's just, I don't know.
But that becomes down to then is that
there to be a delay.
Then like the speed of thought and things like that can travel faster than light, because really you're moving something on this end and it's immediately having a result that distance away from you. How is that anything other than faster than light travel? They say nothing can go faster than light, but isn't that proving if I can pull a stick and something happens 93 million miles away immediately, then something does travel faster than light. Because light's supposed to take 8 minutes to get from the sun to the Earth. So how did I translate some action 93 million miles away? And so I don't know. We can keep watching, but maybe I'm out in left field on this one. I just don't see how people wouldn't realize that if that is instantaneous, which I believe too, then so is light. Because just like this pole is here, all the sunlight is there too. I'm looking at this diagram, but we can talk about the sun being close and local as well. But the sunlight is immediate. So how do we know that light isn't immediate? What is the evidence that we know that light actually takes time to travel? Is there evidence that you could just give me if I were to say, oh no, light's infinite speed, it happens instantaneously. How would you disprove that to me? How would you say, because think about that, if that was proven, the whole heliocentric model is garbage. Every distance to every star.
Well, that's it. That's the answer. They don't disprove it. They just have to disregard it as a possibility because they know where we live.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it.
I understand. There's no actual. The top level PhD wouldn't have an answer for you right there, right? Like, because I've looked into it and taught. There is no proof of the speed of light. In fact, they even to try to measure it, they have a two-way to get the one-way. It's laughable.
Yeah,
but like, they can't even isolate a one-way. Yeah, but it's all nonsense.
Yeah, could take a certain amount of time to go and be immediately bounce. You cannot measure the go back if you want to. I don't know if you saw the video from Atheism that explained with graphics that problem.
Oh yeah, so he had a video. I haven't seen it, but it's called "Why We Can't Measure the Speed of Light."
Yeah, exactly.
And what does he say?
No, basically, I think Austin can explain better. But basically, you can measure just the one way, but the return of the light could be instantaneously. Could be you cannot measure the coming back response. I don't know. Austin maybe can explain better, but if not, I can give you the link to the Veritasium video.
No, it's just an interesting.
That's pretty much it. How do you isolate if there's a return, quote unquote, of the light, or if there's not, right? And they can't do that, so they basically just split it. So like they just have a duration of time and then say that it's going from point A to point B.
Right.
There is no way to isolate a return, if you will. They don't have a one way. They have a two way, and then they make up a one way attribution of speed to it. In 2021, that's what they do.
The other question I had about speed of light, whenever they do these experiments I've seen, they bounce light off mirrors, right? But how does that not slow down light? Because I know it's not a change in medium necessarily, but how does hitting a wall and having to bounce off that doesn't change the speed of light? To me, I think if you lined up a bunch of mirrors bouncing back and back and back and back and forth, that light would clearly be slower than one that just had the same distance to travel but in a straight line. Right? If I had a laser and I put it off of a mirror and then had a mirror on the other side and it kind of shot back and forth, ding, 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 like a ping pong ball, but all the way down. And you have that exact same distance lined up with a laser pointing straight with no mirrors. Are you in the belief that the mirrors would take an equal time as the laser shooting straight? Because I believe that's the belief. That's how they measure the speed.
Well, they have to say that. They have to say that, bro.
Right.
Because it's actually instant.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah. So I agree. I think when people talk about the speed of light, they're not. If it's dark out and then all of a sudden a mountain is illuminated, there is no light traveling from the mountain to your eye. The mountain has been illuminated, and you can see illumination. So I think they've got the whole thing screwed up.
That is what I always think. I mean, the idea, first of all, there is no travel. It is more the propagation.
Yes.
And then you're going to reach a certain amount of the light could be irradiated, and you see it because the light, it's, propagated certain distance from that distant point.
Correct.
Let's say, for example, I can see a light that propagates inside the bulb light, 2 kilometers away. But I am seeing, it's not that light is getting to me. I just see it at that distance. It's like when I see a mountain, the mountain is not traveling to me. No. The mountain is there, and I can see it there.
Right.
And done.
Right, because it's illumination.
Right. But so what they're saying that it's actually little photons that are traveling from the mountain and hitting you in the eye, which
at the speed of light.
I don't believe.
Yeah, but that it's I think that it's related with the supposedly experiments of Albert Einstein that is related with the quantum physics. I can search for the name, but it's this little plaquette of metal that they ionize, and they shoot supposedly certain let me just
find it, because astronomy has some of the dumbest. I'm sorry, it has some of the dumbest thoughts or experiments or like discoveries that I've ever heard in my life.
No, but they observe when how certain how you say because it's not light in itself, because light, it doesn't exist itself. It's just they shoot like hydrogen atoms versus I don't know, other gas or whatever, and they see this reaction. So they say, okay, that must be particles shooting against other particles because they annihilate
interference pattern.
But let me just search for the name of experiments. So because we are talking too much freely, and maybe there is people out in the chat or maybe.
Well, we're gonna have them call in here in a second, because I think the thing to me is like Albert Einstein's all these things that they come up with, but the proof of relativity, they say, is because they went out one eclipse and said if we see some star behind the sun, it means relativity is true. And they saw the star behind the sun, which meant that the curvature of space-time was real. Their stories are so over-the-top ridiculous, and people are so dumbed down.
Well, but electromagnetism can bend light, quote-unquote light. So could be that the sun is an electromagnetic source bending light of the stars. Could be the same thing. The problem is that in science we observe. the problem is that we in science, we observe a phenomena,
Right.
but it has multiple explanations.
Well, maybe
of
the
that phenomenon.
stars, like they feel like, to me, it's like to be so conceited that you think you know the exact location of where a star should be when you're always looking through the atmosphere. You don't have a fucking clue. But they're like, oh, we know it should be here, and if it's here, then we know that this is true. But they don't think of all the things that go into where you would observe a star on an eclipse. You have to look through a telescope with the blocked out. I mean, it's just like ridiculous to me. The other one that's ridiculous to me is the Neptune one. Nobody's ever been able to explain this to me. You're telling me that in whatever year it was, 1850, so you barely have very good telescopes. Maybe you've got a 10 times telescope, and these guys are doing mathematical equations, and somehow they say, oh, the planets aren't moving like they're supposed to. We think there's supposed to be an extra body here, and some guy goes and looks and finds Neptune. That is beyond horseshit, because you wouldn't have known any of the sizes of any of the planets. It would have been all guesswork. You don't have a fucking clue the weight of Jupiter, how many moons it has, how many moons Saturn has, the weight of it, how big it is. So to say like, oh, we had all the math right, and then we saw this little anomaly happening out here, and we said there must be something else out here causing this. That's horseshit. Why wouldn't you just adjust the other numbers, right? Like you could just change Pluto's size until it fit, and then go, oh, now it works. So maybe I'm dumb, but somebody needs to show me what you're talking about, that people in 1850 would be able to do mathematics around the lights in the sky and then say, oh, there must be another body out here causing some sort of activity that we don't know about. It's, to me, I think the entire thing is fabricated. That whole story, the whole Neptune being found, and I don't know what you guys think. Do you think that's possible, that you could look at the mathematics of an area and be like, oh, this must have we're missing something out here. Go look out there, and the guy looks at his telescope and says, yep, there it is. There's Neptune. I don't believe it. I'm not buying
Well, then why didn't they see it before then?
Yeah, why? Well, the funny thing is, like, why don't people see it now? Like, we are way beyond. Like, I've never heard somebody say, "Oh, I seen Neptune in a telescope." No, you have not. But I mean, I've never heard anybody claim that. You? I never even heard that claim. But yeah,
No, but
1850.
they have magic telescopes.
Oh yeah, it's like when Aaron Ra told me that he saw the moons of Saturn or something. Like, you haven't seen the moon? Did you guys hear that debate with him when he said that we see the new moon? I'm like, bro, you've never seen the new moon. He says everybody's seen the new moon. I'm like, you have not seen the new moon. It's impossible to see the new moon.
What I thought was so funny was when you told him that you can watch a ship go over beyond the vanishing point and then pull out a telescope and restore it. He said you didn't do that because you can't do that.
Right, that's their answer.
And you told him that you did do that.
He's like, no,
right, and instead of conceding or at least doing it for himself, he's just basically calling you a liar.
Yep, that's all their excuses. They couldn't have done that because it's impossible, and therefore we know the Earth's a sphere. They go, why are you having this conversation then? You're asking for evidence, and I give you the evidence, and you're like, nope, that's impossible. Can't do that. The other funny thing that he says, and I'm going to see if I can bring it up just because it's probably hilarious, is this is what you need to do. Anytime you talk to an astrophysicist or anybody, this may be the question that they cannot answer, is simply to explain space-time. It's hilarious that, to me, that somebody who is an atheist and believes all this stuff then they should be able to explain space-time, and he has one of the hardest times I've ever seen of somebody trying to explain space-time.
It's a nothing burger. And it's a nothing burger. And so when you have the proof of Einstein with the eclipse and the stars appearing behind the sun, when you have something that doesn't actually exist, space-time, and then you have some sort of observation that proves space-time, then they just run with that, right? I mean, and they're in a very sort of unique position and a very special position to do that sort of thing in science, because you have something that doesn't exist, it's a lie, but then you sort of frame evidence with the eclipse around it and say that if this happens, then it proves our point. I mean, where else in science can you do that other than Einstein's thought experiments? It's crazy to me what they get away with.
Well, how about this?
This is entities like NASA.
Let's listen to him real quick. This is him getting away with. I mean,
I send you the link also, Jeran.
Okay, in the chat. Thank you. I'll grab it right now. So check this out. Tell me if you're a science believer, how do you not hear this and go, oh shit, our model has a pretty big hole in it?
You believe. It's not what I believe. It's what I follow the evidence. And I know that when it's sundown for me, I can talk to somebody, it's still in daylight. I can talk to somebody on the phone on the other side of the planet. They might be in the middle of the night. They might be in tomorrow.
Yep.
Because this is the way a sphere works.
It's
This is
also
not the way a disc works.
It is the way this works with
would
the
not
sun going
produce-
around the top of it.
But
sun
that
is
doesn't work for the
does
reasons we've already explained. For the things that you can see in the sky in the southern climes when you're down close toward the Antarctic Circle.
Okay, if there's a northern star that's above the North Pole, then after you get to the equator, that star is now at the horizon. It's
Mhm.
dropped due to perspective. So if you go past the horizon, you cannot see the North Star anymore.
Which on a disc, you would still be able to see it.
And I just said you would not be able to.
And I
based
know
on
that you mistakenly said that you would not be able to see it, but yes, in fact, you would be able to see it.
What is the fabric of space-time? Space is the absence of everything, and now you've just given it qualities that
But it's
allows
not
it
an
to be
absence
bent.
of everything.
Okay, then what is it?
There is a fabric of space-time.
What is it? What is it made of? Fabric of what?
That's what it is.
Okay,
It's
so
fabric
you're
of
just doing the
space-time.
same thing. You're yelling at me and saying you're making up this
Not yelling
make-believe
at you.
stuff. You're making make-believe things. There's no fabric of space-time.
Okay, what is
Just
leather made of?
Cows.
Well, leather is made of leather.
No, it's made of cow skin. That's what it's made of.
Okay. The fabric of space-time is just the definition. It is the fabric of space-time. That's what it is.
That's what it is, guys. It is the fabric of space-time. It's what it is. So, I mean, with that kind of evidence, I don't know how you could ever deny the fabric of space-time, because it is what it is. And I was taught in like third grade that when they give you a word and you have to define it for your test or whatever, the one thing you couldn't do is use the same word in the definition, right?
Mhm.
That's not defining a word if you just use the
Find
same
it
word.
right.
Dude, Jeran, no one will ever answer that question.
No, 'cause there's no
when you
answer
ask
to
them, like, well, you're giving it qualities. Like, how does it have qualities? What is it? How does it have physical qualities or characteristics? Dude, crickets every
Done.
time.
Yeah.
No one answers it.
And the sad thing is that is a paradox. It's a paradox, and they don't even call it that, which is insane to me. So is the idea of the Earth being, it's all relativity, yet we go around the sun. Well, what are you talking about? How can you? That's two polarly opposite things. If we live in a relative universe, then it means that everything's relative. Meaning you cannot say the Earth goes around the sun, because if you stood on the sun, yes, it would look like the Earth's going around you. But if you stood on the Earth, it looks like the sun's going around you, and there's neither one is correct. But they teach children it's a relativistic universe, and we go around the sun. Well, what do you mean? That's what I mean. That's doublespeak. You're teaching literal retardation, because it doesn't. Those two things cannot coexist. You cannot say everything's relative and we go around the sun. Then everything's not relative. So to me, it's like they purposely just fill people's heads with nonsense, and then they get to a certain age and they just have to believe everything. I mean, they tell you that they can look through a little tube of glass and see back in time, and people believe it. That's what they tell you. They tell you that all we need to do, like everything in the world is normal. All we see is what's current. But if you allow smart men to get a tube and put lenses at the end of it, now we can look into the sky and see back in time billions of years. And we just sat there and went like, yep, these guys they know exactly what they're doing, man. Looking back in time. And it's literally the dumbest thing ever.
If it's in the textbook, I mean, why would they spend so much time and effort and energy into printing textbooks if they were just, spitballing, or if they didn't know for sure?
Right.
So,
Well, it actually works. But
What?
it actually works because it's so fantastical, right?
Yeah, it's like tell a lie, make it big
works
enough.
because it's so. Yeah, you're a child. You're like, wow, like it's so fantastical that you're like, oh, that's amazing. That's why.
Yeah,
like,
that's
you don't
why they
actually
throw
intellectualize
these
it,
like,
you're just wow.
diamonds rain sideways on Neptune, right? I mean, there's no reason to say that other than just to make people go, oh my goodness, wow, that's amazing. That's the only reason. I mean, otherwise it's really useless information and dumb. I mean, even the entire space travel idea is dumb. I mean, what is humanity going to gain by flying out by Pluto? They make it sound like, oh, we're going to go check out Pluto so we can figure out the origins of the universe. What are you going to fly to Pluto and find a little like gold disc that says this is where everything began? And no, you're not going to find it. It's just a joke. You're flying around in make-believe land, and you're telling people that you need money to do it. And every time they give you money, you're going back and asking for more money. And anything that you use, let's bring a little rover out and we say it's on Mars and it's going to be up there for 2 years. And you had to say that, so you got some funding. But then you just keep asking for more funding because you're like, well, it's already there. We spent $4 billion on it. You might want to leave it. It's still working. And then this is why all their apparatuses work. Like, there's nothing that's still working without any maintenance, like these crafts that are flying 13 billion miles away from Earth right now. The Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. they're just loving life, just traveling out in space, 13 billion miles away, and they send information back, and we get it, and it's glorious. It's really glorious. It's just amazing to me what we've done here on Earth, and then what they try to pretend like they do in the sky. Huh?
Yeah, traveling through astral, traveling through extreme fluctuations in temperature and unknown variables, and yeah, just functioning top notch without any problems. But try to replicate that here in reality, and things break down
all the time.
But not when it's NASA's imaginary things. They just perpetually work forever.
Absolutely, miracle engineers for sure. Hey guys, we're gonna go over to Rockfin. We're gonna take some phone calls. We'll go all the way till 3. And if you guys have a comment on something we've talked about, please let us know. Maybe you've got a comment on the speed of light. By the way, at the end of that video, we can go back and listen to it real quick. But at the end of that video, I found an astrophysicist or somebody gives an answer as to would it travel at the speed of light, and they said no, it travels at the speed of sound, and therefore it would take a day if you had a pole going from the Earth to the moon. If the guy pulled the one side of the stick, that it would take, because that has to travel through that apparatus, it would take a day until the guy on the moon recognized that he moved the stick, which that alone to me disproves their entire thing. It's all garbage from that point, because
you could do that on a football field.
Could do what?
Do that on a football field. I mean, if you stand on opposite ends of a football field and raise your hand and yell hello to your friend on the other side of the football field, and he will see you raise your hand just an instant before he hears you, because of the speed of sound or whatever.
Right.
But if you had a pole that's 100 yards long, you could test that pretty easily. And I'm here I'd put all my money in the bank on the fact that it would happen instantly. There wouldn't be a delay.
So you're saying when I pull,
should be pretty easily testable, I think.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think if it would be. I think you'd have to do much farther than a football field, but maybe not to get a good answer. I mean, because what do they say? It travels.
Well, I mean, no.
Yeah, because I guess it's not that fast. What is it? 700 miles per hour.
You stand on opposite ends of a football field. It takes a second. It takes a second for you to hear your friend yell at you across the other end of a football field. Maybe not a full second.
Okay, but I see what you're saying. But the
Sure.
difference is the speed of sound through wood would be much, much faster than through air. Right? Like the speed of sound in water is like the most fast, and then air is way slower, right? Which has always been weird to me. I still messes with my head because I'm like, it's so different than the speed of light, which they say goes fastest in a vacuum. The speed of sound doesn't exist in the vacuum, right? Speed of light goes fastest in a vacuum. Then as it hits each individual medium, it slows down. But the opposite is true for sound. Sound goes faster and better the denser the medium. Just weird. All right, we're heading over to Rockfin. It's Rock. Go ahead. I missed you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think there's a delay for me speaking, but no, I was just saying the double slit experiment, right?
I'm not a big fan of that, but
I'm sorry. I think there's a delay for when I'm.
Yeah, it does sound like you're behind a little bit.
I just forget it. We'll switch over. I'm going to shut up.
All right. I'm going to put this in the YouTube chat. Head over there. And by the way, sorry. This is Globebusters. I was thinking I was on my show. Let me see here. Flashback Biblical says he's found out that he's the center of his own reality. I think we all are, to be honest with you. So you have found out correctly. There is the, let's see here. There's the link, rockfin.com/stream10493. Put it in one more time. And we'll see you guys over there, and should be fun. Sound like garbage? What does... The mics are garbage? Somebody says it sounds like garbage. Let me know. Is there a problem with the sound? Somebody let me know. He has the look of a man who is proud of the fact... Oh, they're looking at the screen. Oh, tell me if there's some sound issue. It says sounds like garbage. Seeing if sound looks good to me. Hello? Yeah, looks fine. All right, we're going to head over there. See you guys in a minute. And thank you, YouTube. And hello, Rockfin. All right, we are only at Rockfin now. Thank you guys for being here. Let's